In late November 1950, along the frozen ridgelines overlooking the Chosin Reservoir, commanders of the Chinese People's Volunteer Army observed American positions with measured confidence. These were veteran officers who had defeated nationalist forces through overwhelming mass infantry tactics during years of brutal Civil War combat. Their intelligence reports confirmed that American forces possessed standard-issue M1 Garand rifles. Those rifles were effective but predictable. Chinese troops had encountered them before and had neutralized them through numerical superiority and nighttime assaults perfected against nationalist armies. What Chinese commanders dismissed as routine reconnaissance fire from distant American positions was something far more devastating. It was upgraded M1D Garand sniper rifles equipped with precision optics and operated by designated marksmen trained to exploit semi-automatic capability at extended ranges. This underestimation caused catastrophic casualties and forced a reassessment of the mass assault doctrine that had proved successful throughout the Chinese Civil War. The M1D represented American innovation, applied to a tactical problem through engineering refinement rather than complete redesign. It transformed a reliable infantry rifle into a precision instrument that could engage targets beyond 600 yards, while maintaining rapid-fire capability unavailable to bolt-action sniper rifles. Chinese commanders believed their veteran troops could close distances quickly through infiltration tactics before American firepower could be applied effectively. They did not anticipate how American designated marksmen would eliminate key leaders during approach movements. This disruption shattered unit cohesion before assaults began. This is the story of how American innovation transformed a standard infantry rifle into a sniper weapon that veteran Chinese commanders did not anticipate. It delivered precision firepower that challenged officers who believed numerical superiority and battle-hardened experience would overcome any American defensive advantage. The consequences extended beyond immediate tactical defeats. Chinese leaders were forced to reassess modern firepower and the limits of mass infantry assault tactics against opponents with technological advantages they had underestimated. What began as a confident advance by seasoned troops became a harsh lesson in precision firepower integrated across defensive positions. That lesson was purchased at tremendous cost in casualties and operational failures that haunted Chinese operations throughout the three-year conflict. The M1D Garand sniper rifle marked a departure from traditional bolt-action sniper weapons that had shaped military thinking since World War I. The standard M1 Garand had already revolutionized infantry combat with its semi-automatic action firing the powerful 30-06 Springfield cartridge from an 8-round en-bloc clip. The M1D variant added critical modifications tailored to designated marksman roles without requiring a complete redesign. Engineers at Springfield Armory retrofitted existing M1 rifles with a specialized scope mounting system positioned on the left side of the receiver. This placement accommodated the top-loading clip system central to Garand operation. The solution preserved reliability while adding precision through optical enhancements. The M84 telescopic sight provided 2.2 times magnification and used a post and crosshair reticle. It delivered sufficient magnification for engagements between 400 and 600 yards, while preserving rapid target acquisition in fluid battlefield conditions. Targets appeared briefly and required immediate engagement. The combination proved revolutionary in practice. It created a sniper weapon that could deliver accurate fire at extended ranges while maintaining the volume of fire advantage inherent in semi-automatic operation. In trained hands, it provided roughly 40 to 50 aimed shots per minute. Bolt-action rifles were often limited to 10 to 15 rounds per minute. The rifle weighed 9.5 pounds unloaded. It was slightly heavier than standard bolt-action sniper rifles, but remained controllable, given the firepower advantage and the substantial recoil generated by the 30-06 Springfield cartridge. That cartridge launched a 150-grain bullet at approximately 2,800 feet per second. It generated over 2,600 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. It could penetrate standard infantry equipment and inflict devastating wounds at distances beyond 800 yards. Ballistic performance matched dedicated sniper cartridges while maintaining ammunition commonality with standard M1 Garand rifles. This commonality simplified logistics at company and battalion levels. The M1D's particular effectiveness came from its integration into American tactical doctrine as a force multiplier within infantry squads, rather than as a specialty tool for independent sniper teams. Each infantry company typically deployed several M1D-equipped designated marksmen. They engaged high-value targets, suppressed enemy positions, and provided precision fire support while remaining with their units during offensive and defensive operations. This approach contrasted with traditional sniper employment, in which small teams operated separately, focused on intelligence gathering, and eliminated select targets. Integration within standard infantry units proved crucial in mountainous Korean terrain, where isolated sniper teams were vulnerable to infiltration and encirclement by numerically superior Chinese forces. Those forces had honed sophisticated small unit tactics during years of guerrilla warfare. The M1D's reliability under extreme conditions, inherited from the M1 Garand's World War II record, meant designated marksmen could depend on their weapons in sub-zero temperatures and harsh winter conditions. Winter in Korea regularly brought temperatures below 0 degrees Fahrenheit and snow accumulation above 20 inches in mountainous regions. The gas-operated action tapped propellant gases from the barrel to cycle the action and chamber fresh cartridges. Although semi-automatic systems required more maintenance than simple bolt-action designs, the M1D proved resistant to freezing and fouling when maintained with proper cold-weather lubricants and field procedures emphasized in training. Chinese People's Volunteer Army forces entering Korea in October 1950 brought deep combat experience forged through years of revolutionary warfare against Japanese occupiers and nationalist armies. These were veteran units that had defeated better-equipped nationalist forces through superior tactics, ideological commitment, and endurance. Many Chinese officers and senior non-commissioned officers had nearly a decade of combat experience. They survived brutal campaigns that rewarded tactical innovation, the ability to operate with minimal logistics, and a willingness to accept casualties that would shatter conventional formations. Commanders perfected infiltration tactics and nighttime movement through difficult terrain. They used local numerical superiority at decisive points to overwhelm defensive positions before reinforcements arrived. Their doctrine emphasized massed assaults supported by limited artillery. They exploited gaps in defensive lines and used terrain to neutralize enemy advantages in firepower and air support. Intelligence assessments suggested that American forces, while well-equipped and supported by overwhelming artillery and air power, lacked the combat experience and ideological motivation to withstand determined assaults by troops willing to suffer heavy losses. Reports emphasized American dependence on technology and predictable defensive tactics centered on holding fixed positions with concentrated firepower. Chinese officers believed their veterans possessed advantages in night fighting, close combat, and psychological resilience. They expected that American units, accustomed to material abundance and casualty-averse tactics, would not match these qualities. The presence of standard M1 Garand rifles among American infantry generated little concern. Chinese planners had studied Civil War reports showing nationalist forces equipped with various American weapons, including M1 Garands, were consistently defeated despite equipment advantages. While semi-automatic rifles provided firepower advantages over bolt-action rifles in sustained firefights, Chinese forces understood these principles and had counters developed through experience. Doctrine emphasized closing distance quickly under cover of darkness. The goal was to overwhelm positions before firepower could be fully employed, and to exploit the shock of massed infantry appearing from multiple directions. What Chinese commanders failed to anticipate was the evolution of American marksmanship doctrine and the direct employment of precision weapons within frontline units at company and platoon levels. Chinese intelligence did not fully understand how American forces had refined designated marksman concepts. Selected infantrymen employed M1D rifles as precision instruments that identified and eliminated key personnel at ranges where massed infantry became vulnerable during approach movements. The first major engagements between Chinese forces and American units equipped with M1D rifles occurred during the massive Chinese intervention in late October and November 1950. Approximately 300,000 troops of the People's Volunteer Army crossed the Yalu River into Korea. Chinese planners committed overwhelming force organized into multiple corps. Orders were to drive American and United Nations forces from North Korea through rapid offensive operations that exploited surprise and numerical superiority. Initial attacks achieved tactical surprise. They overwhelmed isolated American and South Korean units through nighttime infiltration and mass assaults. As American forces established coherent defensive lines and learned from initial engagements, Chinese assaults began to encounter unexpectedly devastating defensive fire. American designated marksmen, positioned in depth and trained to identify key targets at extended ranges, systematically engaged officers, political commissars, and unit leaders as assault formations organized for attack. The effect was psychologically and tactically severe. Chinese doctrine relied on visible leadership during assaults. Officers and political commissars led from the front to maintain momentum and inspire troops advancing under fire. That philosophy generated aggressiveness and cohesion in Civil War battles. It also created vulnerabilities against precision fire that eliminated leaders at extended ranges. Leaders were struck often before assault waves closed to within 300 yards of American lines. Coordination collapsed, and the cohesion needed for mass assaults broke down. Troops trained to follow visible command direction found themselves advancing without the leadership structure required to maintain direction under intensifying defensive fire. American after-action reports from November and December 1950 documented the effectiveness of M1D-equipped marksmen in disrupting assault tactics through targeted elimination of leadership. At the chosen reservoir, 9 Chinese divisions surrounded the 1st Marine Division and attached Army units in late November. Marine-designated marksmen with M1D rifles engaged Chinese forces attempting to infiltrate defensive perimeters during nighttime attacks in extreme cold. Semi-automatic capability proved crucial. Individual marksmen engaged multiple targets rapidly, as troops maneuvered within the 400 to 600-yard envelope, where scope-equipped rifles maintained accuracy advantages over iron sights. Chinese forces believed darkness and terrain provided concealment, but they encountered precise fire from unexpected directions and ranges during approach movements. Units hesitated or broke off attacks. That doctrine required them to press regardless of casualties. This hesitation, previously uncommon among veteran units, revealed the psychological impact of precision fire beyond its immediate tactical effects. It created uncertainty about American defensive capabilities and the viability of standard assault tactics against opponents with unexpected precision fire capacity. The mountainous Korean terrain featured steep ridgelines, narrow valleys, and limited approach routes through rugged ground. Weather was extreme. These conditions favored defensive use of precision rifles integrated into prepared positions. American commanders placed M1D-equipped marksmen to cover likely approach routes and assembly areas where attackers concentrated before launching assaults. The 2.2 times magnification of the M84 scope was modest, compared to specialized sniper optics with 4 to 10 times magnification. It was optimal for Korean conditions where typical engagement ranges fell between 300 and 600 yards. And higher magnification slowed acquisition of moving targets in complex terrain. Chinese units, accustomed to using terrain for concealment during approach movements, discovered that American marksmen maintained systematic observation of infiltration routes and engaged personnel at ranges they believed safe from direct observation. The semi-automatic action allowed a single marksman to engage groups moving through confined terrain, delivering multiple aimed shots within seconds before targets could disperse or take cover. Chinese after-action assessments recovered during United Nations counteroffensives in early 1951 revealed growing concern about American precision fire. One report from the Chinese 39th Corps, dated December 1950 and captured near Hungnam, noted disproportionate leadership casualties during approach movements. Another report from the Chinese 40th Corps observed that American defensive positions showed greater depth and coordination than expected, with concealed riflemen engaging at ranges beyond normal infantry distances. These assessments recognized an unexpected dimension in American defense. They often attributed losses to general American firepower, rather than to designated marksmen with precision rifles. Chinese countermeasures emphasized accelerating approach movement to reduce exposure and increasing nighttime operations to diminish optical advantages. American commanders adapted in turn. They placed M1D-equipped marksmen with overlapping fields of fire and integrated illumination through mortar flares and searchlight-equipped tanks. Sudden illumination exposed infiltration routes and subjected troops to devastating precision fire. When Chinese forces attempted rapid advances through confined terrain, American marksmen exploited target-rich conditions. They engaged multiple personnel within the 8-round clip capacity and reloaded quickly to sustain fire. Winter conditions created severe challenges for all equipment and tested reliability at environmental extremes. Chinese forces operated with minimal logistics. Supply lines stretched from Manchuria across mountains and were under constant air interdiction. Non-combat losses from frostbite and exposure were catastrophic. American forces had better cold weather gear but still faced significant maintenance challenges. In extreme cold, normal lubricants froze and metal contraction affected tolerances. Properly maintained with cold weather lubricants and adapted procedures, the M1D demonstrated remarkable reliability. The gas-operated system required reduced lubrication to avoid frozen buildup and strict moisture control to prevent internal ice. Designated marksmen received training that emphasized cold weather maintenance. That included techniques to ensure reliable feeding from the en-bloc clip in sub-zero temperatures. As operations continued through the harsh winter, the M1D's consistent performance shaped perceptions. Chinese weapons malfunctioned more often in extreme cold. American precision fire continued with little interruption. Chinese troops drew conclusions about equipment disparity that reinforced broader perceptions of technological inferiority. The ability of American marksmen to maintain effective fire while Chinese weapons failed contributed to demoralization. Units faced sustained combat without relief and with inadequate resupply of ammunition, food, and cold weather equipment. Chinese doctrine had assumed that American dependence on machines and lack of ideological motivation would cause greater degradation under harsh conditions. The opposite occurred. American weapons, including M1D rifles, continued to function. American logistics maintained steady supplies. Chinese supply lines suffered under distance, terrain, and relentless air attack. This reversal shook confidence in strategic assumptions about American capabilities and willingness to endure hardship. By January 1951, as Chinese forces consolidated gains and American forces established defensive lines near the 38th parallel, Chinese commanders faced a new reality. American precision firepower, exemplified by widespread M1D employment throughout defensive positions, demanded fundamental adjustments to assault doctrine. Mass assault tactics that had defeated nationalist forces grew increasingly costly and ineffective against integrated precision weapons at every organizational level, from squads to battalions. During 1951 and 1952, as the war shifted from mobile operations to static warfare with fortified lines and limited offensives, the role of M1D-equipped marksmen evolved. American forces held defensive positions on mountainous ridgelines that dominated approaches and terrain features. M1D rifles supported sustained precision fire missions targeting positions, observation posts, and logistics activities within observation range. Semi-automatic capability was valuable in prolonged operations. Individual marksmen engaged multiple targets over extended periods without the fatigue of working a bolt between shots. Missions often lasted hours and required sustained observation and intermittent engagement. Chinese forces built elaborate trench systems and fortifications to protect against artillery and air attacks. American marksmen kept constant pressure on exposed personnel. Daylight movement above ground became hazardous. Routine operations required for defense and limited offensives suffered. Movement between positions, observation tasks for directing artillery, and resupply activities carried high risk from precision fire delivered from hundreds of yards away. Chinese operations moved increasingly underground. Tunnel systems connected positions to reduce exposure while allowing movement and resupply. Labor for these works, combined with combat casualties and poor health due to inadequate nutrition and limited medical care, eroded combat effectiveness. American intelligence noted declining aggressiveness in Chinese operations and growing demoralization among prisoners captured during patrols and limited offensives. Interrogations revealed fear of American firepower and doubts about victory against an enemy with overwhelming material advantages. The specific threat from American snipers and designated marksmen appeared frequently in prisoner accounts. They described the shock of sudden, accurate fire from concealed positions. Officially, American doctrine treated the M1D as a designated marksman rifle, rather than a specialized sniper weapon. In practice, it served both roles: precision elimination of specific targets and volume fire support during defense. The flexibility came from semi-automatic operation and integration within standard infantry units. That integration multiplied tactical impact beyond what independent sniper teams could achieve with surgical strikes alone. Chinese military assessments during and after the war acknowledged American firepower superiority. That superiority included unprecedented artillery quantities, constant air support against rear areas and front lines, and systematic use of precision small arms across defensive organizations. These factors prevented Chinese victory despite numerical advantages and notable battlefield successes. While official assessments rarely emphasized individual systems, the cumulative effect of precision rifles, including M1D-equipped marksmen, contributed significantly to casualties and operational limits across 3 years of combat. Statistical patterns in casualties aligned with precision rifle effects against assault formations and forward personnel. Medical and unit reports recorded high percentages of head and upper torso wounds. Those patterns were consistent with aimed fire at extended ranges. They contrasted with the more random distributions typical of artillery and machine guns, which often produced more lower extremity wounds. Chinese forces suffered an estimated 400,000 killed and 486,000 wounded during the Korean War, with additional non-combat casualties from disease and cold weather injuries. While artillery and air attacks caused most casualties, the persistent threat from precision rifles shaped tactical behavior. It forced adaptations that reduced operational flexibility and increased vulnerability to other American systems by constraining movement and imposing defensive measures that consumed resources. The psychological dimension of precision rifle fire exceeded its immediate tactical effects. Under artillery fire, survival often seemed driven by chance, allowing soldiers to keep functioning despite fear. Precision rifle fire was different. Designated marksmen deliberately selected specific individuals based on importance or opportunity. That constant possibility created persistent psychological pressure. It degraded morale and effectiveness beyond what casualty numbers alone revealed. Knowledge that exposed movement drew accurate fire from invisible marksmen forced behavioral patterns that reduced tactical effectiveness. Those patterns played into American strengths by limiting mobility and making adaptations predictable. By 1953, as armistice negotiations neared conclusion after 2 years of stalemate and diplomacy, Chinese tactics had shifted from the aggressive mass assaults of 1950. Greater emphasis on artillery preparation, more deliberate timing designed to minimize exposure, and trench warfare techniques borrowed from World War I all reflected hard lessons learned at great cost. Chinese military academies studied the war for decades. They drew broad lessons about technological disparity and the limits of mass mobilization and revolutionary fervor against opponents with superior industry, weapons technology, and logistics. American assessments reached different conclusions. They emphasized the decisive effectiveness of combined arms and the importance of weapons designed for specific tactical roles. The M1D did not receive the fame of specialized sniper rifles like the Winchester Model 70 used by Marine Scout snipers. It proved its value as a reliable precision weapon that trained infantry marksmen could employ without the extensive specialization required for elite sniper units. Lessons from the M1D's employment influenced later American small arms development, including the M14 rifle of the late 1950s and later designated marksman rifles that formalized concepts validated in Korea. The core idea was to equip selected infantrymen with precision-capable weapons that offered clear performance advantages over standard rifles without separating them into independent sniper units. That idea became established doctrine and shaped American infantry organization for decades. For veterans who carried M1D rifles in Korea, the weapons represented more than hardware. They embodied the confidence that comes from possessing tools adequate for survival against numerically superior opponents. For Chinese veterans, memories included the persistent threat from American marksmen and the recognition that numbers could not compensate for systemic disadvantages in firepower. That lesson was purchased through tremendous sacrifice.